you guys for being here today. It's a big day for our project team. We have an opportunity to get a great project and build a great relationship with a very big owner in the Bay Area. I'm going to briefly touch over our meeting agenda here. First, I'm going to go over the project overview. I'm Tyler, the PM. Site utilization, Daniel, our PE, is going to go over it. Staffing and general conditions, Connor, another PE, is going to go over it. Our job hazard analysis, Tony, our QCE, is going to go over it. Self-performed estimates by Greg and Anders, our estimators. Schedule and phasing plan by Tom and Will, our schedulers. Field challenges and lead by Felipe and John, our superintendents. Quality control from Tony, and some of the sub buyouts by Zach, our project manager. So a little bit of the project background. It's a 6.5 acre site we're going to be building on. We're going to have 3 vertical buildings with some site work also. This is going to be a 17th month duration. It's a $24 million project. A little bit to talk a little bit more about how our site utilization is going to go. Here's Dan, project engineer.
So when we were setting up our site utilization plan, we worked directly with our schedulers. We determined that the best way to attack this fast-paced plan or job would be to divide it in 3 phases. Those 3 phases would directly help with winterization process. By the time winter came around, we would have a layer of pavement over the whole site. Also, we have 2 points of entry, one being on the west side, one being on the south side. Those will be used for the big trucks, material trucks, cranes, and there's a concrete washout down there at the bottom, the green one here. There also is a 3rd entrance and exit along here that goes through the property, but we would like to keep that just for the government employees, state employees, but construction managers can access the job trailers through that way because we don't think it would disrupt too much. That brings me to the central job site trailers right in here. Those will be set up on existing pavement so we can get in there right away and we can stay in that exact location until the end of the project. The schedulers will talk more about how building G and F are actually going to go up and H and B. But we'll start out on phase 1 on this side. We'll work from top to the bottom with pavement. Then we'll rotate over to phase 2, and that'll allow us to have cranes anywhere around the buildings and a huge area for material layout. And then we'll bump on to phase 3, and I have Connor here, also a project engineer, to tell you about that.
Thanks, Daniel. For site utilization phase 3, building B is actually a TI improvement. It is not a ground up build like the rest of phase 1 and phase 2. It is actually currently occupied by the city of San Jose. So our plan is going to be to fast track the schedule for phase G, or for building G, which was in phase 1, which will allow us to move the occupants from building B into building G. As you can see here, we have a perimeter fence. The reason for this is because it's very close to building C, adjacent building, and then building Q, I think, over there. We also added 2 temporary gates at the top of the lot. This will allow for a very easy path of travel for deliveries, equipment, and we can manage who comes in and off the site. To the north of this building is building D. This is also currently occupied, which means that they're using this parking lot on the west side. We need to use that parking lot for your emergency evacuation area as well as contractor parking, since everything else will be done. So we're going to rent that from the owners, which they said is acceptable. Also, you can notice that our job site trailers maintain the same position, so it's one mob and one mobilized, and then we can take off at the same time. So that helps save costs for us and the owner. Now we'll go to our staffing matrix. As you can see, we started our staffing matrix high in the beginning. This is to help with our project estimator. He's going to help with bridging documents. Project engineers, they're going to help with any bid documents, and the project manager, get set up. Then our superintendent comes on the next month. He's going to start the schedule, get things rolling. As you can see, for 3 or 4 months in, we have full staffing. That is for our steel erection. So we want to make sure we mitigate all safety risks, make sure there's no hazards, nothing happens on the job. Throughout the rest of the job till the end, we're going to have a cost-effective staffing plan. Keep those who we need on there and those who we don't. And at the end, we're going to staff up one more time. That's going to be mainly project engineers and the project manager. They're just going to help with closeout documents and any RFIs that need to be closed. And now back to Dean.
As you were saying on the staffing matrix, we had to figure out who was going to be on this particular job at any particular time. The field staff being more related to what's going on at any time, and office staff more from the beginning to the end, designing all the way to the end of the contract. We're also able to add up our labor, our materials, and see how long our equipment will be out there, and that gave us a total of $1.88 million for the total cost of our contract. Now I'd like to pass it over to Tony to talk about safety.
After reviewing the bid documents on this project, we have some safety concerns that we need to address right now. We're going to have heavy equipment on site, workers working at unsafe heights, and hazardous material that may be present in the existing building. As Tyler mentioned earlier, this is our first project with the City of San Jose, and we want to build a strong relationship with them so that we can continue to acquire work in the future. One way to do this is to be completely safe. One big issue that they have, and that they have brought up, is workers working at unsafe heights, and how are we going to protect them. We have communicated with them that we will follow all OSHA standards. We will require all employees and subcontractors to follow OSHA standards, especially when it comes to fall protection systems. One issue that we have after reviewing the bid documents is the possibility of uncovering hazardous materials like lead paint or asbestos in the existing buildings. We have contained a healthy amount in our contingency, and we will use all necessary precautions if the bacteria or hazard presents itself. To mitigate any other risk, we will of course follow all OSHA standards, and we will present every emergency plan to all our employees on site. We will also conduct daily toolbox meetings as well as daily safety inspections to ensure that our job site is as safe as possible. We are committed to safety here at Hensel Phelps, and we will not, and following this model will allow us to complete this project safe and efficiently. Speaking more on costs associated with the overall project will be Greg, one of the estimators on the job.
To illustrate our cost breakdown, we have a simple pie chart here that's broken up the cost by building. You can see here building G takes up about more than half of our total cost, and that's because it's mostly office space as compared to buildings F and building B, which are more open garage space. The total takeoff amount came to about $852,000, plus our contingency of 7% brought our total to $912,000. The main risk we're facing right now is that it's a very busy market right now, and we've seen little interest from subs in bidding this project, which means that the few subs that are bidding have the potential to raise their price unfairly. To mitigate this risk, luckily we have a trusted sub who is nice enough to lend us their unit cost to come up with our own estimate and compare it to the price of the bids that we received. After comparing our number to the bids that we received, we found a reasonable price from a reasonable sub. To go further into our estimate, Anders will speak more about concrete.
Good afternoon. I'm Anders King, one of the estimators for this project. I have come up with a price of $626,000 of the concrete, in which this includes labor, material, and equipment. Labor, which takes up $35,000, material of $252,000, and equipment of $23,000. With a fee of 10%, which does include contingency. I believe this contingency and fee is competitive, as we'll be using our employees, who are carpenters. Sorry, I'm a little sick right now. Who will give us an advantage in cost, time, and safety. Cost, we'll be able to manage our budget. We will be able to drive and control our schedule rather than using other subcontractor schedules. And safety, as Tony mentioned earlier, we have a great safety program. This will allow a decrease in number of accidents on the job site. Disadvantages we may incur will be labor risk. Are we going to have enough employees on the job to perform this concrete work? I'll now pass it on to Tom on scheduling. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So we got our notice to proceed on March 3rd, and we're going to start with building G because it is the most complex out of all the buildings. We're going to split up into two phases, phase 1 being the east phase, and then phase 2 being the west phase. Then we're going to go on to building F and build it from the ground up. It's going to take about the same amount of duration. After that, we're going to go straight into building H, which is a simple parking structure, or a parking cover. And then once that's done, we're going to renovate building B. So here's a quick little critical path method. We're going to start off with concrete. Obviously, it's going to drive our schedule, and we're going to go through from buildings, starting with building G, going to building F, H, and then finishing up with building B. Now we're gonna have Will, the other scheduler, to talk a little bit more on that.
Thanks, Tom. So here's a layout of the site, and to go into depth more about how we're going to go about building it, we'll start with site work, and that contains this whole area, the tan. We're going to come through and we're going to winterize it first, put down our base and asphalt. And then our crews will start immediately on building G, pouring the foundation and then bringing it to structural steel. Structural steel will take 5 weeks, total of 25 days. As soon as that crew is done on building G, they'll move down to building F and start steel there as well. And that is the same duration of 5 weeks total. The start of building G will be April 28th for the total duration of 200 days to completion. As soon as we complete that, as Tom pointed out earlier, we will be able to move people from building B, which is over here in this area, into building G so that we can start that renovation on building B. And that total duration is 68 days. And now to go into depth on building G phasing, since it is the most intricate building of the job, it has a lot of office space in it. We're going to start our crews on this side, the northeast side. And our crews for interior will come down with the CMU wall. They'll follow it along the edge, circle around, and go up. And then following them, as soon as they get down to this portion, will be the overhead mechanical, electrical, and plumbing crews. There will be some overlap there where they can work around each other, and they're going to follow in the clockwise circle. The other crews will follow behind framing, and then rough in electrical for the walls and plumbing, and then we'll rock. Before that, actually, we'll rock one side, then come in for the rough in, and then rock the other side and tape and texture. The finishes will be a total of 50 days interior, with a total of 22 weeks starting from CMU and ending. Now I'll pass it to Felipe, our superintendent.
Thank you, Will. So for the payment scope of the project, the owner is going to provide their own subcontractor, which is an advantage for us because we will have no liability in the contract, and it would also be a benefit for the owner because he will save some money. Some of the disadvantages are that we're still responsible for their safety out in the field, and the subcontractor might also not get along with our subcontractor. During the course of the project, it was brought to our attention that the subcontractor was performing a bad job. The way we're planning to tackle this issue is by first addressing it to the owner during the OEC meeting. We then will invite the owner on the job site walk and so to show him the problem so he could experience it at first hand. The subcontractor would then be given a chance to correct their mistakes and will be warned to proceed to do a better job. If a subcontractor keeps performing a bad job, Council Phelps will then advise the owner, and we could find a replacement subcontractor that will get the job done at a cheaper price and will do a better job. Now, John, to talk about unforeseen site conditions.
Thanks, Felipe. So one of the challenges we ran into on this project was our unforeseen site condition, and that was that the health department was unresponsive in our attempt to pull the permit for the reclaimed water line. Substantial completion was quickly approaching, and we needed to come up with a solution to fix this problem. So we thought of a couple solutions. One was temporary toilets. One was a water tank with a pump servicing all the bathrooms. We ultimately decided to go with a temporary domestic water line running and stubbing up into the reclaimed water line. That way it could serve all of the bathrooms until the point when that permit was pulled, at which point we turn off that line and then we serve the reclaimed water into the bathrooms.
The advantages and disadvantages of this temporary fixture is that the owner can move into the building early. It will have minimal impact on our schedule and will be pretty easy to fix once it's no longer needed. The disadvantage is that it will cost money, additional money to run a new line, and also cause a delay on the decertification process.
The other challenge we ran into was shortly after the project finished, we were notified that the occupants filed a complaint with the local union. They said that there was not sufficient male bathrooms, being that the occupants are 95% male, 5% female, and we built the building to code, 50% male bathrooms, 50% female bathrooms. It's a valid complaint. It is partially our responsibility and to take on this issue. we overlooked the fact that it would be 95% male and 5% female. So to keep a good working relationship with the city of San Jose, we have decided to do all of the construction services without a fee, and they will just be responsible for any direct costs. The city of San Jose has also notified us that they would like to go above and beyond what they contracted us for LEED Silver. They would like to attain LEED Gold. So we looked at our score chart, and we have come up with a few options to help them achieve that. Some inexpensive options that are relatively easy to complete are installing low-emitting carpet, low-emitting paints, as well as implementing thermal comfort controls and lighting controls. So we're hoping that we present this to the city of San Jose, and they're happy with the options, and they accept the price that we propose, and we can move them on to LEED Gold. And now I'm going to pass it on to Tony, who's going to talk a little bit about quality control.
In order to complete a quality project, we're going to need to be consistent in our quality control process. We can accomplish this by following up with any changes to our subcontractors. We will also ensure that they understand the change prior to delivery. When the material arrives on site, we will check it and make sure that it is up to the quality called out in the plans and specs. As Connor mentioned earlier, and as you saw from the staffing matrix, we are going to employ field engineers and project engineers on this job. We will equip them with iPads and give them the capability of Plan Grid so that they can create pre-punch lists, and we can hold subcontractors accountable for any low quality work. Speaking more on subcontractors and subcontractor analysis will be Zach and the PMs.
Thanks, Tony. For the subcontractor analysis, the pre-engineered buildings are going to be the most expensive at $2,642,000. After consulting, we went with CM Erectors after consulting with our scheduler, and we learned that the 10-week difference in lead time for the materials was really crucial for the overall price of the project and allowed us to mitigate the risk with CM Erectors. The flooring is going to cost $412,000. We believe bedrock floor coverings cover the most scope, no scope gap, and had the lowest bid. We went with Big Jamie's Masonry because we also thought they had the lowest bid and had no scope gap. For the proposal summary, the direct costs were $19,680,000. We're going to self-perform the concrete, and we do that to have more control of the project and to minimize the risk. We are not self-performing the drywall because we had more competitive bids that would make it more competitive for the overall project. Our indirect costs are going to be $1,877,000. We are going to charge a 5% fee of $1,078,000. We believe that's a reasonable price for how booming the economy is, and we have very few bidders going against us. Also, we have bridging documents is what we're provided with, and it's the first design build for the city of San Jose, so that's also providing more risk. We went with a 7% contingency rate at $1,509,000. We believe a 75%, 25%, owner sharing plan was reasonable, with it being the first project with San Jose, and it's going to bring us a lot of projects in the future. Our total is going to be $24,143,000, which brings us to Tyler to sum up the project.
All right, thank you, Zach. So for some take-home points, here at Winslow Phelps, we're always trying to mitigate risk and provide future projects for future owners. So one of the major ways we did some risk mitigation was a job hazard analysis report. Tony touched on it a lot. We're following all the OSHA standards and making sure everybody who comes to the job safe and leaves the job safe the same way they came. Another thing we really wanted to do was have competent subcontractors. It's not always the lowest guy or fastest schedule. It was the guy who had the least risk, that we could trust, and we knew we'd get the best quality product from. And also on quality, we have quality control. So throughout the project, we have iPads and a pre-punch list going using Plan Grid and other technologies to make sure the owner is receiving the product they deserve and something we want to put our name on as a contractor. And then also this is huge because it is the first project with the city of San Jose, their first design build, and this is a huge foot in the door for a contractor for such a big city and a big municipal area that they could possibly get future work from. So all this put together, we've chose a good amount of contingency in which we are safe and we're not taking too much risk. And then we also chose a good amount of scheduled time and fee to make sure that everybody is profiting and it's a win-win situation. Thank you, and do you guys have any questions?
So Tyler, it's a design build project.
Yes.
Are we partnering with an architectural and engineering firm? Are we doing it in-house? And is the $24 million budget inclusive of design fees?
I don't know the answer to that, given our situation, but I would get back to you because, yeah.
So let me ask you this then. I asked you two questions. So
Yeah.
are you not sure if we're designing it in-house? Are we partnering?
I'm not sure if we're designing or partnering, just because of the information given on the project from that we don't know what the design team is doing. We're getting bridging documents, so I'm assuming that most of it was designed
Okay.
out of house, and then we're kind of taking on that last bit of it.
And the number that was represented on the screen as a project cost, was that inclusive of design fees or just construction?
Just construction.
And then, do you know if the city of San Jose allows to self-perform work without receiving competitive bids? Or do we have to bid it out and?
I do not know these things. I apologize. We have to look into it further.
You guys mentioned during the safety portion, Tony mentioned that there was some risk mitigation. There also could be asbestos or something like that, which is really common in city buildings. Has anybody done a survey or anything like that to verify whether there is, what kind of hazardous materials you guys gonna run into or anything like that?
We have communicated with the owner. We have not had an inspection yet. So we are not sure who's gonna cover the cost at this moment. It's gonna be on our end or theirs.
Well, you included some cost in
The contingency.
right?
So we have it covered in the contingency if it does fall on us. But we are still communicating with the owner to get them to do an inspection.
Is this project, it's competitively bid, like you're competing against other people?
Yes.
If you're competing against other people, you may want to exclude the attachments material. In other words, don't put it into your bid because you are competing. In terms of, I received conflicting information with respect to, this is a very important client, this is a very important job in terms of it being the first design build for the city. So it gives you kind of like a foot in the door kind of a thing. But I'm receiving conflicting information from the team with respect to that you have a fat contingency, that you have a high fee, and if you're really interested in the client and you are competing, those two things don't go together. If you really want to put your foot in the door, you typically go with a lower fee rather than a higher fee. In this particular case, since the market is tight, you may want to hedge your bet in terms of between a 3 and a 5, go in with a 4 perhaps. That's a suggestion. And that's about it. I'm getting some other things.
What was the overall duration of the project?
17 months.
And is there's overlapping work taking place, or is it end-to-end work? So is one building being completed and then we're moving on, or is there
There will
overlap?
be start work where multiple subcontractors have different.
So, as I touched on earlier, the steel will be going up for building G, and as soon as that steel's done, that crew moves over, and there will be other cranes on building F. Right, building F. Yeah, so then simultaneously they are going up, and the crews are able to switch over. As they finish here, they jump over there.
And as far as our staffing for general conditions, are we assigning our project teams to work on all aspects of the projects? For example, we have project engineers. Are they gonna work on every phase of the project, or they're gonna be assigned to just one task, one building?
I can answer that. We have 2 field engineers in the beginning. That's just kind of helped get the ball rolling. And with steel erection, we're going to have a field engineer on the building G and then a field engineer on building F.
Okay.
One overseeing the erection process and one overseeing the drywall going up and stuff like that. We'll have one project manager. We have a superintendent who will be overseeing the entire project, which will be going to his field engineers for help. We also have an area superintendent, something special Hensel Phelps does. He basically travels from job to job. So we'll have him on 2 to 3 times a week, half-time, just make sure everything's going smoothly. And if the superintendent needs help, he can call him in and help him out.
So have we looked at a workloaded schedule to try to get a feel for how many construction workers are gonna be on site at any one given time? And do a cross reference to see if we have appropriate staffing from the Hensel Phelps side to manage that many activities and people?
We have not done that yet.
3 separate buildings bound up in one remodel, that's a lot for one guy, keep him running around. I had a question about the phasing. You guys are phasing the east side first. You guys are phasing the east side first as opposed to the west, how come?
I believe we're phasing the east, my bad. Will.
It was just, we chose the east side because they were somewhat identical, and it was just, we had to choose a starting point, and I felt that the top right looks good.
And that's, I think also because that's what most of your underground utilities were.
That's what I meant to say.
Just for future.
I had a question on the schedule also. Have submittals and material lead times been taken into consideration on the schedule?
They are.
And what are your long lead items, and how does that affect your schedule?
One of the longest lead items would be the structural steel, which is 10 weeks per building. But we can start 5 weeks, after 5 weeks of one building started, we can continue to the next one while the other one finishes the next 5 weeks. So technically all 3 of them would take about 15 weeks to reach.
So one starts the 10 weeks, and then once that's finished, it starts the next 10 weeks?
Yeah, it starts.
So they don't all start at once?
No, the first one starts and it goes for 5 weeks, and then once 5 weeks is over, they'll move half the crew to the other side, finish out the next 5, and as that 5's finishing, the other 5's starting, and each building's 10 weeks long, but we're kind of overlapping it.
And who's the fabricator for the steel?
CM Erectors.
CM Erectors.
Okay, the fabricator or the erector?
I believe both, correct?
We don't get that much. Yeah, so it's like we should be doing that.
No, it was labor also.
Gotcha. And I had a question also on, you guys talked about, I think it was Greg talked about the partitions, the EOS pie chart and everything for that scope of work. What exactly is the partitions? Is that the drywall?
It's the framing. Their unit cost went by the framing, so they did the unit cost by the height, and then also they broke it up by, well, actually, I'd take that back. I think it was the mixture of framing and drywall, because on their unit cost, they did include the differences between fire rating and the insulation. So yeah, they gave us the data for all the framing and the drywall.
So is that self-performed?
No, they gave us
Okay.
their unit cost so that we could compare and estimate with the other subs, because we were worried that some of the subs would rise their prices just because there weren't that many people.
Oh, okay.
I heard something, that I'm sure Mark has kind of put his ears as well. I heard some occupied spaces. Is the client are we gonna be interacting at any location where there's gonna be San Jose city workers or the general public? Or are we gonna be 100% isolated away from anyone from the public?
Building B is the occupied building as well as building D, and if you look at the site plan, on the east side, the road goes straight through. That's their main entrance to get to and from building D and building B. So we're gonna pave that right away in the very beginning, and we're gonna have to have flaggers out there and make sure that they can move freely throughout the site. So that's one of the safety risks.
And are we working inside an occupied building?
No, not until they are completely moved out of building B.
To add to that, we will use barricades and warning signs to restrict access to hazardous areas to the occupied space, occupants.
And then I didn't see in the budget, it might be somewhere in general conditions, but we have security guards, we have night off shift security.
I believe it was a lump sum cost for security.
Okay. And then when we're talking about cheaper or less expensive, the kind of the terminology we want to use is cost effective.
Okay.
But picked up on that change though.
Yeah, I did. But we always want to allude to cost effective.
Okay.
In terms of presenting the schedule, just from a graphic standpoint, one thing that you may want to consider perhaps is just showing a condensed version of the schedule and then a detailed version.
With milestones, just individual milestones.
Just like, for example, just one line saying this is building A, building B, kind of grasp the project at once. Most people don't want to necessarily delve into the detail unless they have questions. So you want to show both, one that just shows overall, this is what we're intending to do, and then you can show that, yes, we've done the detail, and if there's any issues within the detail that you want to present in terms of either something that may be problematic that you're addressing in detail, that you may want to focus on that and show that you're taking that into consideration as well.
And
So
more of a
always go
10,000.
always go high and then detail.
Yeah, more of a 10,000 foot look, where you can list the milestones is like, obviously, building G getting done first. Do G and F have to both be done before you can get them out of B?
No,
just G.
Just G, so they're going, and then there's equipment that's going into F.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there'll be no interaction with them, but what Rudy was saying is a high level schedule that just shows, you know, maybe those major milestones, getting the underground utilities in, getting phase 1 paved, finishing G, moving them from B, finishing F, moving on to H. And then what was building Q that Connor was referring to?
It's like situated directly west of it. So building B is in between two separate buildings.
Okay.
Either building Q or it's hard to read.
Yeah, cause even with your crane positioning and stuff like that, you guys gotta make sure that you're keeping yourself separate.
Building B is the TI, so it's the one that impact on it.
Okay, but like even with your crane positioning, if you still have people that are going to those buildings, going through the center of the site, you better have that fenced off, you know, especially if you guys, cause you got what, 10 different crane positions. 4 at building G and 6 more at F, so, just something to consider for your next one.
Another aspect is when you're doing design build, you have a huge advantage in design build